Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. Happy Thursday, everybody. And wow, we kind of get a breather. You know, we have a Silver Series event this weekend, but a lot of people taking the weekend off. You know, no 1050 boys in the field at the Stafford Open. Got, you know, a lot of the top women are out as well. So kind of a chance for everybody to catch their breath after this big stretch in the Midwest and get ready for, I don't know if I want to call it the East Coast swing. I think really I would just call it the end of the season, the fall. So, Josh, what tournament are you most looking forward to in this home stretch as we get into September and October?
Green Mountain Championship. Those set of courses, they're my favorite courses on tour. I think they complement each other well. I think they're excellent courses that make for an excellent event. So without hesitation, Green Mountain Championship is my favorite event every year.
Well, it's going to certainly be a fun one. And, you know, first up, we've got Delaware Disc Golf Challenge, National Tour event. Then we've got MVP Open up at Maple Hill. And on we go into the rest of this final stretch before the USDGC and the Throw Pink Women's Championship, and then, of course, the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, which I'm sure is going to make some people a very nice paycheck. If you had to guess, they have not announced this to my knowledge. If you had to guess, what are the payouts going to be this year for the winners at the Pro Tour Championship? Last year was $25K.
You know, when 25K came out, I was like, oh, it's a nice number. It sounds nice and round. Between, you know, the 50,000 between the two winners sounds really clean. It's a very substantial amount, so it's going to take a while for other tournaments to catch up, which is true. But, you know, James Conrad making over, was it 12 or 16,000? I'd have to look. One of the two numbers. Let's do the two in my head. I don't remember.
It was well over 10,000.
Right. Well over $10,000. I remember it was more than half of what the Pro Tour Championship payout is. So, I mean, tournaments are catching up. If there is a jump, I say 30,000 this year. That's my guess.
I'm going to guess 35,000.
35. Okay.
There's definitely room for an over-under here.
There is. I mean, if we said you want to say 32.5 as the line?
Sure. And I'll take the over and you'll take the under?
Works for me.
I'm happy to bet on the over on this one. I feel like they're going to,
you better not have some off-the-record information that you're...
I swear to God I don't. I would not do that. That would not be fair. I just feel like they are going to want to push that number high because, you know, especially like Worlds this year, significant amount of added cash and huge payout overall. And we're actually going to talk more about added cash and kind of the changing economics of playing at tournaments in our subscriber bonus segment. So we hope you'll join us for that. discgolf.ultiworld.com/subscribe. Let's get into this show. We're going to start today with a discussion of proposed rule changes to the PDGA. And there's like a kind of a big, this is one of the more substantive rule change proposals that we've seen in a while. So it's out for public review right now, and they're getting ready to turn these into actual rules. So we're going to go through the notable changes and take a look at, you know, whether we like these or not. So why don't we just start at the top of the list? And again, you can find these over on the PDGA website, proposed rule changes. They put up an article last week. And so these are, you know, I think have been discussed for some time. There's, you can email into 2022rules@pdga.com and, you know, they'll consider your input. So here are the proposed major changes for 2022. Distractions no longer reset the 30-second clock and bathroom breaks are allowed. So basically, the 30-second clock is, you have to step up and throw your shot within 30 seconds. But they used to say that if there was a distraction, that would reset the clock. But it's an undefinable term. And so, if somebody honks or a gust of wind or whatever, now the clock will just continue to run and you just get the 30 seconds. However, if players need to take a bathroom break, they're allowed to request it from the group, and that's now being allowed, which we've actually seen happening on tour in the last, at least I've seen it a couple times in the last year. So that's sort of already happening. Josh, what do you think about this distractions no longer resetting the clock concept?
When the NBA came out and made the rule change after the playoffs for the next season that you couldn't make unnatural shooting motions in order to draw fouls, I was like, oh, got it. So the Trae Young rule. This feels very targeted. There is one player in particular that I'm sure everyone listening to this show knows exactly. I mean, everyone read this and thought, oh, so the Nicola Castro rule. Other players are going to be affected by this. Don't get me wrong. But it feels like a response to what is a large swath of criticism towards a certain type of player, and that being Nico, in terms of the time that he takes. And other players do as well, though less to an egregious extent and thus getting less focus. Nico is he just captures media attention, and that includes social media. So it makes sense why he's the one who's most frequently discussed. But I think this is how it feels to me. I think it's a good change. I think pace of play is something that the Disc Golf Pro Tour should always consider and keep in mind. And I think this one is a necessary change because it defines in this kind of little description, it says, for example, if a gust of wind blows in your face, with this rule change, it continues to run. I think that's excellent because the gusty situations, you don't just get to wait until the wind stops for a while and then you get to putt.
I'm just going to wait 5 minutes for this wind to die down before I throw my shot. Look, this is a no-brainer. I mean, it's funny to think about how the rule got written in the past, that distraction, it's kind of ridiculous in some ways. It's part of the game is dealing with distractions. Part of the game is dealing with a bird suddenly flying from somewhere when you're about to throw your putt. It just... You don't just get to keep resetting the clock sort of based on your own interpretation of what is a distraction. And basically this just gives teeth to the ability for players to say, hey, you're taking too long, you need to throw. And they can no longer say, well, there was a distraction, so I reset the clock. So it makes a lot of sense to me. The excessive time issue has certainly been a problem for some players. So it makes a lot of sense. All right, next one up, simplified mandatory rule. The new rule does not require the disc to come to rest to make a determination. So if the disc breaks the vertical plane that the mandatory restricts, it missed the mando, and players proceed to the drop zone or previous lie, depending on the rules of the hole. So it's creating a vertical plane. If a throw clearly and completely enters a restricted space, the player receives one penalty throw, ... I'm not quite sure what caused this rule to have to change, because that was sort of my understanding of how the rule worked in the first place. But I guess there was some lack of clarity around this. I don't really see much to say about this besides this makes sense.
The previous rule was that there was a way that you calculate where the mando line is, and then if the disc enters in but rolls back out, it is not technically missing the mando. And all sorts of really weird stuff about the ways in which you interpret that. My question is, was it always the rule for Mandos that if no drop zone has been designated, that you throw from the previous lie? I feel like most holes with a Mando have a drop zone, but I'm just, at least the ones I've played, is that new?
I think it's just always, I think it just depends on the hole design. I mean, I feel like I've always played it that you play from the edge of the mando if there's not a drop zone.
That's what I thought I've played too.
But I'm
So
not
I
going
may
to
have
go
just been
deep
playing
into
it
the rule
wrong.
book to find the answer to that question right now. I mean, obviously, at professional tournaments that we're watching, there's very clear rules about what's supposed to happen when you miss a Mando, which unfortunately in some cases means that you get to go 400 feet up the fairway and throw your shot, which happened at Worlds and annoyed a lot of players. Options after out of bounds. The change provides the player more flexibility in marking a lie where they can take a legal stance after throwing OB. Maximizes the standard amount of relief at 1 meter total rather than 1 meter from any given OB line, and clarifies how OB lines that create corners or acute angles should play. So you're restricted to a maximum of 1 meter from the OB line, but you can choose any angle to draw that line. So you will be able to take a legal stance behind your mini. So if your thrown disc is within 1 meter of OB, the new version of this rule keeps the perpendicular restriction for almost out-of-bounds discs. However, if your disc is within 1 meter of a corner, you can alternately use a 1 meter line from the corner through the center of your thrown disc. So when you get those like weird out-of-bounds spots where you're kind of like in between two different lines, you're kind of now given the option to go from either line.
And it seems as well that you can move your disc forward as long as it's within a meter.
Yeah, so a lie designated by a marker disc placed on the playing surface up to 1 meter away from the point where the disc was last in bounds. So, you kind of, theoretically, that means that it would create like a semicircular 1 meter line, right? Which would be, you sort of draw a radius of 1 meter from the spot where your disc was last in bounds, and you can play it from anywhere there at the maximum. So you could play from anywhere inside that semicircle created by a 1 meter radius. It sounds like.
I think it's a good change. I don't think that moving forward, those 8 inches that you get if you slide forward a little bit are going to make or break your ability to throw. And in fact, I think a lot of players are probably going to stick with moving a meter out near perpendicular to the OB line, just because it creates the best like footing to not throw out of bounds, because you still can't throw the disc out of bounds. So, even if I could just advance 1 meter along the OB line and then just move out just a few inches, that doesn't really make for good footing because my back leg can't be staggered. So I imagine we still see a lot of players move over, but I appreciate this kind of flexibility that they're offering.
Yeah, I think, you don't want to overly punish people after they've already been punished, right? You take the stroke penalty, you need to play from around there, but like, does it matter if you're 1 inch here, 1 inch there? It's already sort of vague. So just making it this generalized rule makes sense. Completing the hole. This simplifies the rule. The only issue is now the status of the disc at rest. If the disc is in the basket, it's a made putt. This generally makes the rule more generous as it allows for wedge discs, discs that enter through the top, or discs that enter through the side. Discs hanging or balanced on the tray still count as completing the hole, as do discs hanging in the chains. Discs resting on top of the basket do not count. So basically, again, here's the new rule in the actual rule book. That they're, again, this is a proposed change. In order to complete a hole with a basket target, the thrower must release the disc, and it must come to rest supported by the tray or the chains below the chain support. So now, if you blast a drive and it wedges into the basket, that counts. That could be an ace.
I think it was at Ledgestone, I don't remember what year it was, when Paul Macbeth threw the big spike hyzer on the one that goes over the baseball fields, and his disc got cut in half by the basket. And I think this was the iteration before what we currently have, because I think that would count nowadays. So the iteration before our current rule didn't allow that. And so he had to tap out with his cut in half disc for the 2, and I don't think it counted as an ace. So I don't remember the year. I'd have to go back and look. I just remember seeing that clip once and thinking it was the most wild thing. Like, what do you do if the disc literally, I'm sure there's a rule somewhere that I just don't know, but if it just full splits in half, you have half of it in the basket and half on the ground.
I think this is going to be a controversial change.
Really?
Yeah, because I think people don't like the idea that you made it if you wedge it in from the outside, or that it comes down through the top. The problem is, how do you know how the disc entered the basket, right? If you're far away, how do you know what it did? In a way, it sort of makes sense. It's like, if you manage to wedge it in from the outside, good for you, right? Like, nice job. It's just so incredibly rare that, like, why punish that particular situation? I'm fine with this. I like simplifying and making things easier to understand. Like, my disc is being supported by the basket. That makes sense to me. Now, how you still carve out resting on the top, to me, I think I would probably just go ahead and say that counts too. But I guess the problem is some of those baskets have the little number sign popping up off the top, which can like sort of create a little spot for a disc to land. And so I guess it's fine. I don't know. It seems a little inconsistent now. It's like, before it was like it had to be in the basket or in the chains. And now it's like it can kind of be anywhere, but if it's sitting on the top, it doesn't count. But everything else counts.
Well, and I think, though, imagine, I mean, some of the greens at Idlewild, for example, I think most of them are out of bounds. But like, there are some really steep hills just directly behind them. It may be easier just to reach over and kind of drop your disc on top of the basket rather than having to put it in the chains. So, I don't know.
I feel like that situation is extremely rare. If you're close enough to drop it on top of the basket, I think you could put it in the chains.
I don't know. I'm going to have to go try this. See if I can drop discs consistently from 20 feet away.
If you want to play in a B tier or higher, you have to be a PDGA member.
This is huge.
You used to have to only do it for A tiers and higher. Now it's B tiers and higher. Thoughts?
I have not decided. This is interesting because I think A tiers are pretty prestigious. They don't, I mean, I think Idaho has 2, maybe 3 A tiers in a year, maybe a little bit more than that. I think Utah only has 2 or 3 A tiers. Montana has an A tier, I think, just the Zootown Open. So, I mean, the states I live in out here in the West don't have a ton of A tiers. So they're pretty big deals when they happen. You get tons of people from those 3 states. Pretty common to have them travel for an A tier that's local in this region. But B tiers are, a dime a dozen. They're all over the place. Most tournaments are B tiers around here. And it's interesting. I don't know. I guess I'm wondering, like, what is the advantage besides, the PDGA gets to track you
and get your money,
whether or not you take cash and get your money. Yeah. Like, it just feels like PDGA is just getting more money from it.
You could look at this as a cash grab, but think about how crazy things have been over the last 12 months, particularly here in 2021, with trying to get into tournaments. Now, I'm sure a lot of it depends on where you are in the country, but tournaments have been filling up super fast, and you have lots of casuals who don't have PDGA memberships who want to start playing in tournaments. And at some point, I think you have to make a decision about, like, hey, how do we have some kind of restrictions on who can play in events in order to make this a more sensible process? Yes, this obviously will benefit the PDGA financially, but I think it will also make it feel better for those people who are PDGA members that feel like, okay, now I can get into my B tier in my city and not feel like I have to win the lottery of clicking the button at the right time, right at the top of the hour on disc golf scene. So I get it, because this is a way of doing capacity limits, essentially. And if someone's serious enough that they're like, hey, I really want to play in this slightly bigger tournament, I can, sign up for a membership, and now I can play in B tiers and above. So we already had a cutoff. It was A tiers. Now it's B tiers. To me, that's a sign of the growth of the sport. And it's not like the PDGA is taking this away entirely and saying, there's no way to kind of enter. It's like now you come in, you're a new player, you play a C tier first. If you get more serious about it and you want to play bigger tournaments, then you get a membership. I think that makes a lot of sense.
I think that's a compelling argument. I figured there was one. I just had not thought enough about it. I think the other thing, though, is there are people who play tournaments regularly who choose not to be PDGA members because they ask themselves, well, why does that benefit me? I don't care about my rating. So after that point, like, why should I invest in this? It doesn't, I only play in like 4 events a year. And so it's not quite worth it for me to get the membership. I can just pay my extra $10. But I think that now it's a compelling reason. If you enjoy tournaments, at this point, you really do need to be a member, because I think a majority of the tournaments fall under A tier, B tier classification. I don't know. There's maybe not a majority, but a lot.
Yeah, and I think like if this is such a problem and people are so upset that they would have to get a membership, like we're going to see the non-PDGA tournament market get bigger, where like people are just hosting events outside of the PDGA structure. But the thing is, the PDGA offers insurance and support and like a technology backend that is actually quite easy to use. I don't really think that's going to happen. Sure, some people are going to grumble, but like if you play 4 tournaments a year, then just get a PDGA membership. Like you're paying $40 versus, well, what's a PDGA membership these days? $50?
Yeah, something.
It's like, just get the membership. If you're such a casual player that you only play 1 or 2 tournaments a year and they're probably C tiers, then you don't have to get a membership. No big deal. I mean, I think the idea is a bigger event, right?
Right. I don't have a problem with the rule. Yeah, I'm fine with it. I didn't fully understand the reasoning. I think you made some compelling arguments, but I definitely did not have a problem with it.
Caddies and youth safety. PDGA now requires that caddies, like unaccompanied minor players, be at least 13 years old. So, there you go. That's fine with me. Let's see, players must say one time. I mean, I guess the situation that I think of where this would be a problem is if, like, let's say dad goes out with 10-year-old son and son is going to carry the bag for dad who's playing in the tournament. I think you can't do that now. I mean, is that bad? I don't know.
I don't know. I think there's a risk, like, even the 10-year-olds who are really, really into the sport can wander around and maybe don't have the best awareness about walking into people's lines or talking when putting. So it's interesting to me that we have a junior world championship age division that is younger than our caddy cutoff line.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the idea is, like, if you want to have a caddy, you have to have a caddy that is like almost an adult, which I think is fine. Okay, ghost cards. People feel strongly about this one. The PDGA previously has not explicitly regulated the use of ghost cards, but now it's being made clear in the competition manual that ghost cards are only to be used in emergencies and must follow a set of procedures, which says that they can consist of no more than 4 players. They will always tee second on the hole, and they should start on a shorter length hole after a longer, more difficult hole to minimize the impact on course flow and speed of play. So this is really only supposed to be used if you have a problem where, you have a hole that's unplayable or there's a down power line or something like that.
This is interesting because I played in a tournament where, actually it's not true, I caddied for my wife in a tournament where she was on a ghost hole, and it was just because they wanted to accommodate as many people in a one-day B tier. And so they let in an additional couple players and then just created a ghost card. Under my understanding of this rule, then that is no longer allowed. No.
Which I think is good. I wouldn't want to be in a tournament like that.
There were backups.
I bet there were.
There's a fair argument against them. So
okay,
yeah, I don't know. I don't have strong feelings about that one.
One more major change: tournament officials. B tiers must now have a heightened requirement for non-playing tournament staff. So the TD at an A tier, the TD and assistant TD may not play in their event. At a B tier, either the TD or the assistant TD must be a non-playing official. So again, I think we're seeing a little bit more. B tiers are being sort of elevated slightly in terms of expectations. PDGA membership, non-playing TD, and so that seems to be a consistent theme.
That's a lot of TDs in my area already adhere to this rule for B tiers. I think the demands of TDing have increased. It's no longer just get people to sign their name, running live scores, and there's enough to do that I think a lot of TDs already for their own sanity adhere to this rule. But I know there are some that do play, and I guess I think you'll see a lot more assistant TDs who are locals to the scene who just probably aren't interested in playing or don't play as much, who become assistants so that we have a non-playing official.
So then there's a bunch of minor changes to all kinds of little sub rules. So now I'm taking a quick look at the comments and see if there's anything interesting down in here. Of course, people are commenting instead of emailing as they're instructed to do. Classic. Let's see. Somebody comments, Rojo comments, defined flagged Mando lines should be encouraged to avoid ambiguity. I agree with that. I think we saw at Worlds what happens if you have a sort of not well-defined Mando line, which is that you have somebody miss the Mando and it's really hard to tell, and then it gets misplayed. I would actually like to see them clarify that rule at some point. People are mad about...
I think another thing...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I think the other thing with Mandos is when TDs just like slap some orange paint on a tree and they're like, this is now a Mando. And it's like, well, I went through the branches near the trunk. Like, which of these branches are part of the Mando, if any? Like, if I touch a branch, did I miss the Mando? If I touch a branch, did I make the Mando? Yeah, I think that cleaner and more clear Mandos are a good suggestion.
All right. Well, anyway, let us know your thoughts. Upshot at ultiworld.com on the rule changes. I mean, I guess across the board, I pretty much agree with these. I think that these are, I want to give the PDGA some credit here. I feel like these are very responsive to things that are happening in tournaments and like things that are happening in registration to make things better. And so kudos. I'm not like a crazy rules stickler or somebody who like really nerds out on the rules of the sport, but I think that these mostly make a ton of sense. And while I'm sure there will be complaints, particularly from people who don't want to pay for PDGA membership, this all makes a lot of sense in the big picture. Like, how do we continue to have nice, sustainable growth? All right, let's move on. And it's time to talk about who is going to win the East. We talked on last show about who's going to win the Midwest. Now, who's going to win the East? So we look ahead to these upcoming events: Delaware, MVP, GMC, USDGC, TPWDGC. That's a mouthful. And the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. So we're in the woods. That's one of the big features. Obviously, USDGC, the kind of the exception to that. But we are going to be in the woods. I mean, it starts with Delaware, which is just like ultra dense woods, kind of probably the most dense woods on the tour. So, Josh, let's start with you. You can start an MPO or FPO. Who do you think's winning the East?
I'm going to start with FPO, and I'm going to pick Sarah Hokum. Sarah Hokum is a phenomenal woods golfer. She has won MVP Open in the past. I don't remember if it was during the iteration. It was the Vibram Open.
Vibram.
But, she's won.
Vibram.
What?
It's Vibram.
Vibram. Sorry. I said it, and I knew I was wrong the second I said
that
it.
pronunciation.
The Vibram Open. I had a buddy in high school call it Vibram, so it took me I heard that
totally
for years.
It's
before
like when you read a word in
I heard the other way,
and you never hear it said, and so then you pronounce it how you imagine it to be. I know how it is.
The moral of that story is don't read books, just watch television where you can hear pronunciations. Anyway, back to Sarah Hokum. I think she's a great woods golfer. She's won the MVP Open in the past. She, back in 2018, let me pull that up real fast. In 2018, Sarah Hokum won the MVP Open. She then took third at Worlds, which was at the Green Mountain the Green Mountain Championship courses, and then she won the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge. So she's got great history on these courses. I think that with the Throw Pink Championship being at Winthrop as well, we know that it's a sidearm course, that it plays well. I think she's going to be able to take advantage of that. She took third at that tournament last year. So I just think, Sarah Hokum's been good, but a little bit quiet this season. And I think it's because at the end of every season, we see her really light up. And that's when we remember, oh yeah, Sarah Hokum can tear these courses apart. So she's my pick to win the East.
I think it's a great pick. Hard to bet against Sarah Hokum in the woods. We know that she can excel in these courses. And I think we've seen her picking up her play as of late, not just because, she's like finding the rhythm again, although I do think that's part of it. I also just think the courses are fitting her game better on this stretch of the tour. Now, she hasn't won an Elite Series event, but would it shock you if she won one of these next few? Wouldn't shock me one bit. I like the pick. However, I'm not going to take Sarah Hokum. I'm going to take Paige Pierce. Maybe that's a boring take, but in 2020, Paige was unbelievable in this stretch. She only didn't win the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship, in the East. Now, obviously, there were fewer tournaments last year, and it was weird COVID year, and all, you can say what you want about all that, but I just think that we've seen Paige play this stretch of the tour extremely effectively. We've also seen Paige playing really well the last couple of weeks. To me, I expect to see a kind of a repeat of what we saw last year, which is Paige Pierce dominating through this stretch of the tour. And I wish I had a hotter take. I mean, I really tried to talk myself into some other players. I tried to talk myself into Haley King. I can definitely understand the Sarah Hokum take. I think it would be sweet if she was to win one or two of these. But I don't know. I think I'm not convinced that it's going to happen. I think that Paige is proven to be very, very tough to beat when, regardless of the course style. So I'm taking Paige to continue to roll here.
It's a good pick. It's definitely a safe pick.
It is a safe pick.
But nothing wrong with a safe pick. That's for certain. What do you got for MPO, Charlie?
This is where it's quite tough. All right, here's my take. You ready for it? Kevin Jones. Now, this is not a safe pick. This is a risky pick. This is a bold pick. But I just feel like we have seen Kevin Jones playing extremely good disc golf and just getting unlucky. If he regresses to the luck mean, right? It's like BABIP in baseball, for all my baseball fans out there. Batting average on balls in play. Basically, when you hit the ball, how often do you get a hit? And there's kind of like a standard number. I forget what it is. It's around 300, 330, where that's just that average that everybody hits when they put the ball in play. And sometimes players get really lucky and have like 500 BABIP. And sometimes they get really unlucky and they have like 150 BABIP. And right now, Kevin Jones' BABIP is like 0.075. The guy can't catch a break. I mean, it's from even, you like remember back to Portland Open when he implodes on 16 or whatever the hole it was, 15. Like, it's not like he yipped the putt super bad. He barely missed the putts and like kept hitting the metal and just got horrible rollaways. And like, yeah, it sucks, and it's convenient and easy to say, oh, you know, he's a choker, like he can't win in these spots. But I actually just think he's been getting unlucky. And, you know, obviously if somebody continuously gets unlucky, then maybe there's like a flaw in their game. But I think it's going to come back around. We've seen him play well in this stretch of the tour in the past. We've seen him play really well at USDGC in the past. And I am going to put my chips down on Kevin Jones to have a nice little streak here at the end of the season. I don't think he's going to win Player of the Year or anything like that. I don't think he's going to go undefeated. I don't think any player could go undefeated at this point. But that's my pick, KJ USA.
When you're talking about him being unlucky, I just thought back to hole 16 at Worlds. That kind of gets overshadowed because of the miracle that happened on 18. But didn't Kevin Jones like miss the island and then he putted from the drop zone and it rolled into the pond?
Yeah, I think he hit the cage. It stood up and rolled down into the water. Now, you know, so missing the island, right? That's a mistake.
Sure.
Hitting the cage,
but lots of people
roll
miss
into the water on like a very not that steep of a hill. That's horribly unlucky. There's just no way around it. And he wasn't going to win anyway. But like, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about. The poor guy can't catch a break. But it'll come back around. It evens out.
You know, the whole Kevin Jones is due is a myth, Charlie. Like, he could just be playing bad.
But I don't think, like, I think if you watch the actual golf, you don't see him playing
You're
bad.
right. You're right.
In my opinion. Not that he doesn't make mistakes.
Sure.
But I just feel like he's throwing the disc great. And, like, it's just like, oh, damn. You know, like, I don't know. Like, Kyle Klein hits a tree and it ticks it back into the fairway and flies another 75 feet. Kevin Jones hits the tree and it goes into the netherworld. Like, I mean, to some extent, that's just luck. How your disc kicks off the tree is pretty much luck. So, I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that he's playing perfect or anything like that, and it's just like all bad luck, and that's the only reason he's not winning. But I do think it's a pretty substantial reason.
I think it's a fair argument. I hope you're right. I really like Kevin Jones, and I've tried really hard to stay on the Kevin Jones hype train. I've picked him to win several times. I'm not picking Kevin Jones to win the East because I'm exhausted of being disappointed. So I had two picks that I was waffling between. One being my safe pick and one being my a little bit more exciting pick. I'm going to go with the more exciting one. I think that James Conrad's going to win the East. He's been a little bit out of form. He did not play well at Ledgestone and Idlewild, but he's a winner of the MVP Open. He is a winner of USDGC. He plays well in the woods. He's been a little bit off sorts, but it feels like, I mean, that stretch, you said it about Katrina Allen, right? Right after Worlds, it's hard to kind of get your swing going again. It was an emotional, exhausting tournament. And then you went into a grueling month and a half of tour. And now they get a break and they get to kind of take a breather. And it feels like we're about to move into the part of the tour that it's more looking towards USDGC and less looking back on Worlds and talking about that kind of history versus future.
Sure.
So as we're kind of turning this page into the final half or final, I guess, quarter of the tour and moving towards our next major, it feels like the world's like electricity in the air is kind of dissipating a little bit. And I think that that's going to bode well for James's game. I think he's played well at these courses. And honestly, I don't even think James, in order to win the East, needs to win 2 events. I think if he has 1 win and solid finishes elsewhere, that is incredible for James because it shows that the World Championship wasn't just a one-off flash in the pan in the season. I think for him to be able to say, I won Worlds and I'm able to continue to win and play well, and, you know, I just needed my courses, I play well in these areas, then that establishes and continues to ensure that James remains an important discussion factor when we get into next season. I think if James doesn't win any other event this year and places poorly, then it becomes a little bit like we were this year, where I don't know if we pick James for top 5 before Worlds very often at all. And I think that it would be really impactful for James to win one of these events and to do well through the stretch. So I'm picking James as my winner. I think he has a lower barrier of what he needs to do to say he won the East and be big for his career and this season, which I know is weird saying he won Worlds, but I think James can do it.
I mean, picking James Conrad to play well in the woods is definitely a solid pick. I mean, you're picking players whose games, in Sarah Hokum and James Conrad, whose games really fit the style of courses we're about to be on. And that's always a good idea. I mean, I think, you know, we're likely to see them outperform their sort of season averages on these courses because of that. And I mean, I think that's where maybe like my Paige Pierce pick has like some level of risk. It's like, this is not
sure.
where Paige is naturally advantaged over the rest of the field in the same way that she would be if we're on open bomber type holes. So anyway, let us know your thoughts. Who do you think is going to win the East? Upshot at ultiworld.com. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go inside the circle. And we're also starting a new segment called Mulligans. We'll tell you about it after this. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. Pound is a product-driven company committed to evolving with and elevating the sport of disc golf. As disc technology and emerging talent continue to redefine the boundaries of the sport, equipment and course design struggle to keep up. In order to develop products that will not only keep up with, but also help redefine the sport, Pound utilizes the latest in backpack design technology. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound uses current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. Learn more at pounddiscgolf.com. Welcome back to the Upshot. It's time to go inside the circle. Josh, take it away.
You know, it's a good thing that we had the week off from tournaments because we have a lot of news that we've got to get to. Not only are we covering things like the rule changes, but there's a couple important things for some touring players. Nate Sexton, for example, is going to be taking a break from tour for a while. He announced that he is going to be pulling his daughter out of daycare again due to the Delta variant of COVID, which means he'll be a stay-at-home dad for a while. He did say, however, that he has made it a priority of his to try and make it to Rock Hill for the USDGC. So hope to see Nate Sexton there, but completely understand the need to prioritize family and ensuring the safety of both himself and his family. So it's an understandable decision, absolutely. And remember, Nate Sexton took a lot of time off tour last year as well due to the COVID risk.
Yeah, I mean, he basically didn't tour. I mean, he went to a couple events and was like really, really cautious about it. And you can understand, like looking at the numbers around right now, right? His daughter's not vaccinated. She's under 12. So I think that this is very much in line with the way that Nate Sexton has approached the COVID pandemic. And I mean, on the upside, he's going to probably be doing more DGN commentary. That's what he said in his Instagram post about this. Obviously, we hope to see him back out on tour again soon. I have to say, it does feel like, this is all kind of like part of a broader trend of Nate Sexton just playing a little bit less, touring a little bit less. This obviously is specific to COVID, but I think this is probably a trend we will see continue. Sexton doing a little bit more on the commentary media side of things and continuing to try to trend away from the week in, week out grind of touring. His wife's a medical doctor, so you have the higher exposure risk in terms of COVID there. So, just hope he and his family stay safe, and that, we get to see him out at USDGC, hopefully.
Another athlete, we did mention Gavin Rathbun was injured as well, but Valerie Mondahanu also burned her hand in an Instapot accident. Something completely unrelated to disc golf, but she did not play in Idlewild because of it, and I don't know how long she's planning on taking off. I wish her the best, absolutely, to get back on tour as quick as possible.
Instant Pots, man, you gotta be careful. Every time, literally, my Instant Pot is on the kitchen right now. I think it's on slow cooker mode, so it's no big deal. But when you're like pressure cooking something, I'm like, there's a literal grenade right here plugged into the wall, and like if I do something wrong, like it's gonna just explode. I don't know what happened with Valerie. Like, tried to take the lid off too soon, or like maybe hit the little vent valve thing and had the steam hit the hand. I don't know. But seriously, like, they get obviously super hot, and that sucks. Hopefully the hand heals up quickly. Those, burns can take some time to heal up. Could be a couple of weeks yet, but obviously not a long-term damage type of thing. But hopefully she's able to heal up quick.
Next, Amateur Worlds has started. It's in Orlando, Florida. It started on the 17th of August, so Tuesday, and will run through the weekend. There are reports, though, of storms in Florida that may be delaying the tournament. I don't know exactly what the plan is, but I know, Charlie, you've been kind of keeping an eye on that weather. What does it look like down there in Florida?
I mean, Florida in the summertime, thunderstorms. I actually haven't looked to see if there's like going to be any tropical storm or hurricane risk, but there's definitely lots of storms in the forecast over the next few days. Hopefully it doesn't overly impact competition. So far in advanced, Ezra Hapner has a one-stroke lead over Evan Scott. Hey, Evan Scott, that's a name we've seen pop up. After one round 2 starting today, we're recording this on Wednesday. And over in advanced women, Melody Casarita, another name we've mentioned on the show in the past. She's sitting at 5 under par, 2-stroke lead over Kirsten Nauer and Julie Mowens. So again, they're just getting started, right? This tournament has 6 rounds and then semis and finals. So it's a marathon type event, even more so than Pro Worlds. And so, you just don't want to knock yourself out on day one.
Final point in Inside the Circle. PDGA released the minutes from what was the much anticipated July meetings due to, the post Worlds. Charlie, you've got those minutes. What are some of the highlights that people need to know about from those?
Yeah, this is the minutes from the Spring Summit. The juiciest stuff is not in here. This is kind of the quick and short answer, but this is a chance for the PDGA to kind of zoom out and have their first in-person summit in, almost 2 years. So Joe Chargaloff, the head of the PDGA, led a discussion on the 2023 strategic priorities and whether they are still relevant given the significant growth and popularity of disc golf since the start of the pandemic, something that we've talked about on this show. Some notes from the minutes. PDGA membership growth is now 4 years ahead of schedule. Thousands of new players and members. How does the PDGA guide and develop them? Demand has really rocketed higher for everything from equipment to tournaments. and you're seeing all kinds of more popularity at the professional level. So, it's a very interesting time to be the PDGA. I think their asset count is now $7.5 million. That number has just gone steadily upwards as they've continued to have big membership growth. So the PDGA plans to really double down into its core competencies, which they list as enabling and supporting organized, sanctioned disc golf events and providing membership services that enable organized disc golf competition at all levels that help fund the PDGA's mission to promote, grow, and sustain the sport of disc golf around the world. They are planning to reorganize the staff and hire more people. I'm really glad to hear that. I think this is something that they really need to do, especially as the size of the membership base has like doubled basically in a year and a half. Now this is interesting. There was a meeting on day 2 of the summit, and the board entered executive session with invited guests to discuss PDGA partnership opportunities for 2022. And so that was with everybody there, which included, members of the PDGA leadership team, some members of the board, of course, and Jeff Spring, head of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. So they all had this meeting. There's no additional information about it. And then executive session part 2 was just the board of directors, Joe Chargoloff, and Dan Stork-Roddick. And so then they had a meeting separate from the other folks. We don't know what happened there. We're still waiting to hear what happened there. And I think it's fair to say that there was probably conversations about the future of professional events on tour and how the Disc Golf Pro Tour and the PDGA are going to be working together into next year. So more to come. Nate Heinold provided an update on changes made by the Majors Committee and staff to adjust to new expectations for majors and elite level events. Measures are being taken to address issues that surfaced during the PDGA Pro Worlds in Utah to ensure they do not resurface at future majors and elite level events. There's also discussion of a senior tour that may be kind of like a virtual tour where, players in the 40 or 50 plus age divisions are able to accumulate points based on playing in various events. There's obviously a very popular PGA senior tour, and I think that someday we'll probably have something similar in disc golf. And that's the big stuff, Josh. I know that's a lot, but there's kind of a lot going on right now at the PDGA, as membership is now close to 100,000 people. Active members.
The growth of the sport's incredible. I think one thing that should also be highlighted, from last year, the number of women who are PDGA members doubled, or very close to. It's just under a full doubling of those members. The one critique I saw a lot of when these 2023 strategic priorities and their core competencies that include balanced staffing, youth and education, sustainability, club support, league development, membership programs, marketing, and technology. When those first were released, I saw a lot of criticism on social media because they did not include the topic of diversity. I think that's a fair critique. I think that we've heard a little bit from the PDGA about it. I would have liked it included in the core priorities, the strategic priorities as well. And I hope that that's something that, even though it isn't a strategic priority, that it's still something that the PDGA continues to make efforts towards addressing.
Of course. I mean, it's one of those things that I think you need to think about across the entire spectrum of all of your initiatives. How do we make this a welcoming sport for everyone, not just the predominant demographic of, 24 to 50-year-old men. Mm-hmm. And, it's not to say that that's not going to be kind of like the primary group that continues to play, but I think you need to think about, in your messaging, in your marketing, how do you continue to be welcoming to other people? And I think it's fair to say that it should be literally one of the things in the list and not just like a thing that you make a committee for and say, oh, well, we've done our part. We made a committee on diversity. So, I do think that this is going to be an issue for disc golf. I mean, the growth is so crazy right now that like just managing to keep up with the growth is the big challenge. But I do think you want to have in your mind at all times, like, how are you presenting the sport so that people are feeling welcomed? Kids too. Like I've always thought that it's not especially welcoming for children right now, disc golf. Not that there's not, junior worlds and events for junior players, but like that's really for the hardcore. How do you make it so that local leagues feel like they're welcoming to kids too? So it's just things for everybody to think about as we continue to try to expand the sport.
If I could take 2 seconds on just a bit of a personal note, I have a 9-year-old cousin who came over for a family barbecue, and we were throwing frisbees around in my parents' backyard, just kind of upshots. And he picked up a Nova and started throwing, had a great time. So gave him the Nova, and I told him that we would bring him out to a local course. And my aunt's been looking for an after-school activity for him. And she asked us, are there any weekly leagues that they do around here that he could play in? And I know we do have one, but the environment of it was enough that I told her, yes, but you don't send your 9-year-old. Like, I wouldn't even be comfortable bringing him with me and having him play in this junior division. So I think that when you, for example, the strategic priority with leagues was one of them, you can make diversity, both youth, women, as well as POC, in a priority in those league developments, as long as you're keeping it at the forefront. And I think that's an important point that they need to do and address.
Yeah, I mean, and this is obviously very much a localized thing, but like, thinking about having an alcohol, drug, and smoke-free league where, it's expected that families are going to come and kids are going to be there. But like a lot of leagues, you wouldn't want to bring a child. It's just like not appropriate. It's not age appropriate for them, even if they're with a parent.
Yeah.
So I think there's room for both of those things. And part of the problem is, I think I've said this before. Right now, let's say you're a league organizer, and you're like, should we have a kids league? And it's like, well, no, there's not enough kids, right? It doesn't make sense to have a league. We don't have enough. But the problem is, there's a reason we don't have enough in the first place. You really need to think about how you start to get into schools and doing sort of things in schools, and then having, it takes time to build out that infrastructure, because you can't just be like, we're going to do weekly youth league now and expect that you're going to get tons of people. Now, maybe that'll work in some communities that have really, really well-established disc golf, but I think that in a lot of places, there wouldn't be enough people to make it worth happening. 3 people show up. But at the same time, it's not necessarily appropriate for a lot of folks to have 10-year-olds showing up to league where people are, ripping 6 White Claws by hole 3. Sorry. It's just like, I mean, I get that that's like part of the culture, but I think you need to try to find ways to separate that to make it possible for, because like you want the parents to bring the kids, but the parents probably aren't going to bring the kids to those kinds of leagues. So you got to think about ways to offer different things for different folks. Okay, it's time to get to our new segment, which we're calling Mulligans. It turns out that we don't always speak nothing but truth on the show. I know that's hard to believe. I know you come here expecting nothing but truth bombs at all times and the insight that I hope that we can provide. But we do make mistakes, and we're starting a news segment. It's not going to be weekly, I certainly hope. But we're going to catch up on some things that we misspoke on or mischaracterized, or we're just flat out wrong about. And so we're calling them Mulligans. So let's dive in. And I appreciate folks reaching out in the Discord, to the email, even texting me personally and telling me when I'm wrong. It happens, and we appreciate it, and we certainly don't want to hide from the fact that we get things wrong. So I'll go first here. I said earlier this week on the show that Andrew Marweed ended up losing on the second playoff hole to Kyle Klein because of an errant drive. Somebody called me out. They said it wasn't really an errant drive. He had a putt, which is true. It's true. He had a long circle 2 putt on a par 4. His second shot hit the guardian tree. And then, he would have had to try to hit this huge putt in order to win, and Kyle Klein was right there, and he didn't make it. It went off the band. So it's not fair to call it an errant drive, especially since it was an upshot, not a drive, and he was inside circle 2, but still not the perfect shot there on the second shot. But I want to make sure I give credit to Andrew Marweed for continuing to be around the green and have a chance to extend the playoff.
Earlier this week as well, I talked about Paul and his the last time he had a 3-stroke lead and ended up losing, and quoted a tweet. Well, I got a message from one of the guys at Statmando. He didn't tell me his name. He just said he was one of the Statmando guys, and his Discord handle is distinctive. So literally like distinctive with some numbers in there. It's not that it is a distinctive one. It is literally distinctive. So distinctive, whatever your name is, shout out. I tried looking for your name and couldn't find it on Twitter. Statmando does do stats for Jomez as well as the Pro Tour and provide some of those stats during that commentary. They pointed out that Paul actually had a 3-stroke lead going into the final round in October last year at Jonesboro and lost to Calvin Heimberg. So a lot more recently thought, but still I think a rare occurrence. So appreciate Statmando and all the work that they do to provide us with some sports stats.
Very rare occurrence. Sport. I mean, it's definitely not as sexy as saying it last time it happened was in 2007 versus last time it happened was last year in October. But it's still so rare that like you might not find another example of it between Jonesboro last year and 2007. But PGA Stats getting dunked on a little bit by Statmando. Ooh, a little spicy Twitter beef between our stat accounts on Twitter. Here is a stat from Statmando. And by the way, finding stats in disc golf is super hard. I respect these guys for going and literally doing manual labor to find this information because there's not a good repository for historical stats in disc golf. And so hopefully we get something like... Now, I mean, obviously UDisc in the last couple years is pretty good. But even that, it's not really queryable. We need an API. Like, there's a bunch of things that would make this a lot easier, and hopefully we get there at some point.
And isn't UDisc Live only like past 5 years as well?
Yes.
Yeah, so
if that,
tons of
I think maybe 2016.
Yeah.
Statmando, the number of times Ricky Wysocki and Paul McBeth both finished outside the top 5 at the same event. So from October 6th, 2013 to July 24th, 2021, it happened twice through 114 total events. In 21 days from July 25th, 2021 to August 15th, 2021, it happened twice in just 4 events. When you talk about the growth of the sport, the competitiveness at the top, how much harder it's getting to win, that shows you everything you need to know. We go like 8 years and only twice do Paul and Ricky miss the top 5 at the same event. And then it happens twice in 4 events over the course of a couple of weeks. Amazing. All right, next one up here. I said that the match play championships for the Disc Golf Pro Tour were going to be in Pittsburgh. No, false. And I couldn't figure out why I thought that. They're going to be in Hellertown, which is near Allentown, north of Philadelphia, completely on the other side of Pennsylvania. At least I got Pennsylvania right. But I was like, why did I think Pittsburgh? And it's because it's at the Steel Club. And Pittsburgh is the Steel City, of course. So somehow in my brain, I connected it to Pittsburgh. But no, it will be in Hellertown. I hope I can get over there. It's only like 90 minutes from my house. So we'll see if I can get there for the Match Play Championships coming up next month, about a month from now.
Another comparison that I made, I compared Henna Blumroos to someone like Owen Scoggins or Heather Young, just in the style of play from the recent European Disc Golf Championships. And I was thoroughly corrected on Discord. If you're not a subscriber,
Discord, thrashed by emails.
Get on. I was very wrong about that. I will say I was looking at the stats at that moment and kind of comparing the styles of the games based on the way the stats played out, in which Henna really didn't park that many holes and had an incredible putting weekend. But I recognize that the what I would say is the more regular style of Henna Blomroos, that would not be correct. So
Henna's a bomber.
She is. Yes.
I honest to God, could not. I feel like I haven't watched Henna Blomroos play in like 10 years. I mean, I know that's not actually true, but it's just like I've not seen her play because she hasn't been over here. We've had the COVID thing,
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't correct you in real time. But like, she is one of the longest throwers on tour. Paige Pierce out throws her, but that might be it. Maybe Ella Hansen. I'd like to see them go head to head, but definitely not an Owen Scoggins or a Heather Young.
No, absolutely not. And I think this is an important lesson on the limitations of UDisc, right? If you're just watching tournaments through UDisc because you've got a busy weekend, you can gain a lot of insight, but not complete insight. And that was a mistake that I made by relying on it.
I think I have two quick ones here. I think I said last week, I was like trying to remember who had to withdraw because of an injury. And I said Gannon Burr. And Josh, you said, no, it's Gavin Rathbun. I said, exactly. It's Gavin Rathbun. Another Gavin. I think I said that. Gannon Burr's name is not Gavin. It's Gannon. There's a rhyme, I guess. I don't know what my brain is doing strange things in the morning. The other thing is when we were talking about the final round of Ledgestone getting canceled, obviously crazy thunderstorms, they had to suspend play. As I said at the time, that is exactly what has to happen. There's no way you try to play through that. There's no way you try to get back out there in the darkness or anything like that. I thought it was handled very well by Nate Heinold and the Disc Golf Pro Tour. But there was some social media comments. Joel Freeman said that he almost got hit by lightning by one of the holes. And I was like, wow, like, did they not clear the course quick enough? And not so. The suspension of play happened way before the lightning arrived, as it's supposed to. And Joel Freeman, I guess, was out walking around and then like almost, I don't want to say he almost got hit by lightning, but like lightning struck on the course very close by. And that's why we saw the pictures from Madison Walker, the crazy lightning strike. Pros, don't go walking around out in the parking lot or whatever during a thunderstorm, please. But just want to make sure that it's clear that the Pro Tour handled everything by the book in terms of player safety, in terms of the storm. So just a quick correction on that as well, in case I was unclear in my discussion of that. So that's our Mulligan segment. If you hear us make a mistake, let us know. It's no problem at all. Upshot@ultiworld.com or hit us up in the Discord. And hopefully we only have to do this like once a month or something. Okay, Stafford Open, Silver Series. It's happening this weekend. It's in New Jersey. If we remember all the way back to January, there was some drama around this tournament because there was a sign up at the course that said Brody's with a picture of Brody Smith. And it was like, don't litter, don't break the laurels, and
please return lost discs.
Please return lost discs. And Brody was very butthurt by this and was like, I'm not going to play this tournament. Like, this is gatekeeping, making people not feel welcomed. This is sad to see. I don't really remember if we talked about this at the time. Like, Brody, it's cool, man. Like, it's really okay for the course to suggest that people pick up their trash, don't break the flowers, and return lost discs. Whether you're a new player, whether you're an experienced player, whether you're a veteran player, whether you're Brody Smith, those are rules that apply to all of us on the course. You can let the skin be a little bit thicker, my friend. Anyway, Brody is not playing at the tournament. I'm pretty sure Paul Macbeth's like Virginia tournament is happening this weekend. Maybe that's wrong. But a lot of people are sitting out the Stafford Open, regardless. And this is a cool event, right? This is the closest tour event to New York City. So there's some excitement in the New York metro area for this. I mean, technically it's a little closer to Philly than it is to New York, but we get to call Philly part of the New York metro area, basically the tri-state, but the tri-state is hubbed around New York. So we kind of just get to claim this massive, whatever it is, 20 million person, maybe more, metro area. So that's exciting. And, we got to make some picks. None of the 1050 guys are there. No Paige Pierce. Bunch of people sitting it out. Makes sense. It's a silver series, and people have just come off of playing like 5 tournaments straight. But Josh, who you got?
I have Kyle Klein to win it. He's playing really well. There's also no 1040 guys either, which is notable. It's the highest rated player in MPO is Matty O, following which is Kyle Klein. So, he's definitely up there. There are names of, this feels like a good Silver Series event. It's got names of people, like Nathan Queen, who we saw playing well earlier in the season. We got Matt Bell, Thomas Gilbert. Guys who I think that do have a really good game and I think don't get showcased often enough sometimes. And so I'm excited to watch them at the Silver Series. But yeah, I think it almost... We talked a while ago about, when Kyle Klein won the Mid-America Open, about how nice it was to see different faces. It kind of feels like Kyle Klein shouldn't be here anymore. Like, come on, Kyle, you're killing it on the Pro Tour. Get off the Silver Series and let someone else have the spotlight. But yeah, I'm going with Kyle for that reason.
I'm going to take Matt Bell. You said his name and made me. He won this tournament by 7 strokes in 2019, beating out some top players. It's definitely more competitive this year. I think Kyle Klein is going to take a step back this week. You just won the big event. It's hard to bring it. It's a Silver Series. He's drinking champagne and hanging out. I don't even know if he can legally drink champagne. He probably can't.
No, I think he can.
He definitely can't.
I think he celebrated.
He's like 19.
He celebrated. I don't know if it was right after Idlewild. But he, which one was it? I don't remember. Anyway, there was a picture of him on Twitter of him getting a Little Caesars pizza after a tournament.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Anyway, I'm taking Matt Bell. Matt Bell, you want to talk about players who could win the East. Matt Bell's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
He won the Delaware Disc Golf Challenge a couple years ago. He won this tournament. The guy is a beast in the woods. He'll probably throw an ace this weekend. He's probably going to do it. It's unbelievable. So I'm taking Matt Bell, and let's go over to FPO. You taking Hokum?
Heck yeah, I am. See, Charlie, you should know this by now. When I make a choice, even if I'm not certain about it, I double down on it. I'm all in. I'm not hedging my bets. I'm not picking someone else so that way I can say, well, Sarah may not win the East now, but at least I picked the Stafford Open. No, I don't do that, Charlie. Sarah Hokum for the win. Just because at this point I feel like I have to. But no, I think she'll do really well. In terms of rating, she is 10 points ahead of Missy Gannon. And then next one is Holly Finley, who is 26 strokes or 26 points back behind. So this is as thin of an MPO field it is. It's a really thin FPO field. A lot of top names sitting this one out. So
give me Missy Gannon.
All right. I'm not shocked. I knew you were going to pick Missy Gannon.
She's playing great right now.
Yeah.
I think she's the best player in the field. She may not have as high a rating as Sarah Hokum, but I think she's the best player in the field.
That's a hot take.
Is it a hot take?
I think it is.
Interesting. Because you think Sarah Hokum is better?
Yeah. I still think Sarah Hokum is better.
I don't know, man. I feel like you look at what we've seen the last few weeks, and we've seen Missy Gannon outplaying Sarah Hokum a little bit.
Yeah, the last few weeks,
but
I'm kind of curious. I'll have to go back and look and do. We'll talk about this more. I'll look at the 2 numbers for the season.
Fair enough. Rating is you have rating on your side. I'll give you that.
It's a pretty big difference too.
Well, yeah, but yeah. What have we seen lately? We've seen Missy Gannon win an Elite Series event. We've seen her finish ahead of Sarah Hokum at multiple tournaments, and I just think we've seen her look really sharp. So I'm taking her.
All right.
And there's our picks for the weekend.
And these are points for our scoring.
Yes.
These are worth 5 points. Did we go over how we scored last week?
I don't know if we did. I think we very briefly did, but we could hit
I don't know if we've done scores. So I think we mentioned that you almost picked a perfect 5. Almost got the royal flush, but
yeah, that's true. We were tied at 35 after Idlewild. But if you include the Euros, which I think we should, and I guess we can debate
Agreed.
it right now, I get the extra 5 points for picking Nicholas Antila. So I'm at 40 and you're at 35. How do you feel?
I was fine with it. I was like, I totally agreed that we should include the European Disc Golf Championships, and then Evelina decided that we shouldn't. And so, I don't know. Evelina says no.
I don't know if Evelina says no. I think you are retroactively wishing you could say no. Gloating after like round 2.
I didn't
about how amazing your pick was.
I was so pleased with myself, and I was like, it's going to be a wash, because I was really sad I didn't get Antila, because I also picked him to go above the 1040 club, which
I thought you were supposed to double down on all of your picks.
You took Antila before I could.
You can take him. There's no rules.
Nah, that's not hot takes. Charlie, people come here for 2 things, truth bombs and hot takes. So I stuck with Vino Makala because in the spirit of hot takes.
All right, we need an over-under. This is the last thing, and then we're signing it off. Do you have one for us this week?
It's your turn to pick the line. I don't have one.
Okay. Over-under 1.5 aces from Matt Bell. Now, let's make it 0.5. I want to make it 0.5.
I don't know. Did he ace in 2019?
I don't know. The guy aces all the time, though. It's crazy.
Oh, statistically, nothing in the universe tells me. Actually, the universe tells me I should take the over. I'm taking the under. Statistically, it would be a terrible choice for me to take the over.
Okay, I'll take the over. Matt Bell over 0.5 aces at the Stafford Open.
What an over under. Holy smokes. Charlie, you just called out a player saying this, not even like aces in general, but Matt Bell is going to ace. Like that's your bet.
That's my bet.
Would you put money on this if sports betting was available here?
If I was given proper odds, sure.
I
definitely think you have the higher probability side of this over-under.
What?
But you know how sick it's going to be when he hits an ace and I get to come on the show next week and just dunk on you? It's going to be awesome.
I won't be there. If he hits an ace, I'm just not showing up on Tuesday.
All right. That's going to do it for Thursday's edition of The Upshot. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be in Milwaukee calling the action for the Stafford Open on Sunday on the Disc Golf Network. So hopefully you'll see you over there. And looking forward to talking to you next week as we get ready for this final stretch of the tour. For Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you next week right here on The Upshot.